Point number 8 is to know your craft. Now, as you see from the picture right here, we have some basic tools that a barber would possibly use. And that's pretty much right to the point. Know your craft, know exactly what it is that you're talking about. Now, in some ways, you're going to think to yourself, well, that goes without saying, right? Knowing what I do. But make sure that you have updated information. That's the first point that's listed here for us. And why do we list that as important? Now, you want to have updated information because if you're going to be testing students on content, whether it's different techniques or different things in regards to the theory, you want to be able to test them in different ways. Now, if you have updated information, such as using the newest books or being at the current hair shows that show new techniques, using current tools that are newer on the market, that's going to help you to be able to relate with the students so that they know they're getting what they need. Remember in one of our objectives we talked about reaching students with different learning styles? This is a perfect example. When you make sure that you do your best to be up on all the different current techniques and you really know what's going on in the industry in terms of where the industry is headed, then you can test them accurately in terms of if they're really retaining the information that you're giving them. Now, there's different kind of learning styles. You have some that like to just simply read the information and they get it. You have some students that need to physically actually do it, which was what we see most of the time in our profession as barbers and stylists, where we practically have to get our hands dirty with our clippers and our combs and our Marcel irons and our color bowls and all the different tools that we have. You have some students that work well in groups where they have to have an interchange back and forth with students. And perhaps you actually have some people that have different learning styles depending on what they're learning. But ultimately, when you're assessing students, when you know what you're really talking about, when you know your craft, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to be able to learn it because you're teaching it to them properly. And that's whether if it's in a physical, practical sense, or if it's something in the theory classroom. Now, one thing to bear in mind is this. If there's ever anything that you feel like you have to work on, be humble enough to make sure that you get those extra classes so that you can then start to do those different techniques well and then teach them to your students. Don't fake it. I'll give you a perfect example. Many times you have barber instructors that can cut hair very, very well, but some don't use shears very well. You might have some barbers that can use shears and can cut decently, but can they use perm rods and put them in the hair properly? Do they know how to do a saturation on the perm rods? Do they know how to do a strand test or a predisposition patch test for color or chemical services? Do they know how to do a roller set? Can they section the hair into 4 sections, 5 sections, or 9 sections to teach those chemical services properly? These are just some examples. And it's not a matter of me trying to seem as if I'm perfect at it, because I'm not. But I've gained a lot more confidence in doing those things because once I had to teach those classes, I knew that I had to be humble enough to be able to make sure that I went back and learned properly how to do them so I could teach them to my students. And in that sense, I really now have become to really know my craft. But that education never stops. Once you feel as if you know everything, then you should probably go and do something else. And at the same time, if you feel like you don't want to change to know what's really changing and evolving in our industry, then you should probably go do something else too, or step away completely. I like to call those people dinosaurs because, dinosaurs are extinct now. And I guess you could say they had their time, but they're not here anymore. But I just use that example because ultimately you have to make sure that you simply know your craft, know where the industry is headed. Don't be stuck in the past. You can't teach the same way you did 5 years ago as you do today. Quite frankly, you can't teach the same way a year ago as you did today. So know exactly what it is that you're trying to teach the students so that they can get 100% of what it is that you're teaching them.